Alright, let's see if we can get a turn in this morning. But before I actually start playing, and I'm looking to make sure, skimming through the rules, because there's some things I kind of feel, geez, maybe these are hidden in the rules, and they're not just by event. Things like, hey, if I want to bring Saruman into play, can I just use a character action? It doesn't look like I can. There's nowhere where it tells you exactly what you can do with any of the die rolls. I kind of went through that. Like I said, these rules are not the best. However, there doesn't seem to be anything under mustering. I don't see the Saruman characters coming into play. Advancing a political position, this was another one. Can you use something to do that? I don't see anything that'll do that from the dice. So it looks to me like most of the dice are going to be useless at the beginning of the game. Okay. The other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to look at my guide. Gandalf is your first guide, but you don't have to use him. You can use Strider. Strider's ability is he can use any action die to hide a revealed fellowship. You don't need a character die roll. That's okay. But Gandalf's is, if you use an event die to play a character event card, you get to draw another character event card immediately afterwards. That sounds pretty useful, actually. Every now and then you might want to take hiding just to make sure you get away with it. And that could be very useful in certain circumstances. Okay. So, let's work our way through the sequence of play. You know what we have? We do have a dice option here. Of what we can do. And the Sauron player can move some of his armies around. He's going to be allowed to do that because he hasn't had war yet, but he can move them around within their, not necessarily their own territories, just not invading. So Haradrim could move forward. How much does that do you, though? Because you'll be able to muster later. I don't know. I don't know how big an advantage. If you want a surprise attack, getting them on the border would be useful. Aha! The muster action. That allows you to move the political markers forward. Okay. So that was the one thing that I missed in my rules overview. Alright, do we have our sequence of play? We do. Excellent. So the first thing we do is we get our event cards. We'll take a look at these. First, the Fellowship, or Good Player, gets 2. Imrahil of Dol Amroth. A Gondor unit and a Gondor leader are recruited in Dol Amroth. I think you can do these without, shit. Stupid ass minis. Without being at war. I'll look that up. Bilbo's Song. Immediately heal 1 corruption point if Gollum is the current guide. Heal 2 corruption points instead. Oh, if Gollum's the current guide, heal 2 corruption points instead. In addition, we have military combat abilities with these. So this one says Fateful Strike. If you score a hit during your leader reroll round, you may eliminate a Nazgul if one's present, in addition to your normal hit. If you score 2 more hits, you may eliminate a minion instead, which could be the King of the Nazgul, for example, or Saruman. And Shield Wall. Before you remove casualties, if your opponent scored 2 or more hits, you get to cancel one of them. Now those are things that you have to play before the combat. So you don't, they're not like the kind of interrupts that are often played in a game like this. Alright, Foul Thing from the Deep. Play only if the Fellowship's last known position is in a region that does not contain a Free People's settlement. You draw a hunt tile. If it shows an eye or Fellowship special, you discard it. If it's numbered, including a shadow special without an eye, you damage the Fellowship as if they're withdrawn. And the Fellowship can take the damage, if possible, as must take the damage as a random casualty, as much as they can. They are terrible. Play only if at least 2 Nazgul are in the battle. You subtract 1 from your total leadership. If you add 1 to all dice on your leader reroll. Okay, so you get less dice, but they're better because the Nazgul are fighting. Oleg High, play only if the Sauron nation is at war. Recruit a Sauron unit in a single region already occupied by the Shadow Army. And we come to kill after removing casualties. Roll an additional attack using only the Shadow Elite units. This attack scores hits with results of 5 or higher. Alright, so we have a number of different cards we can play if we get an event action. The Fellowship declares the position of the Fellowship if they wish, and they can activate a Free People nation. The guide can be changed. Alright, well, nothing we can do there except change the guide, and we don't want to do that. Now the Shadow player gets to allocate how many dice he wants to hunt with. So this is kind of tricky. The muster action is very valuable, I think, for the evil player. The question comes down to, am I more after the ring at this point, or do I want to launch my armies? You know, it's a tough call. Which one makes more sense? Or do you want to go with kind of a more balanced approach? And how does it all work out? So, without having played much, it's hard to tell which one you want to do. Sieges are tough, but they're your way to winning with the army game. Search dice probably will come into play. I'm going to throw 4 dice into search. Now that means I take all these dice and I'm going to be rolling them all. I'm going to do them one hand at a time. Okay, so here's the evil players. He's going to get 3 symbols. Now I know that's an eye. That's going to go in here. But these, I got no idea what they mean. So I got to look them up, which isn't too hard. One's an army. I'm not sure which one. And one's a muster. Alright. That's more or less something I'd want to do. I've got 2 characters here. This looks like a choice between an army and a muster. And this is a little Gandalf sign for Will of the West. Alright. Well, the Fellowship has to go first. And I get to look at my menu options and kind of decide, well, what do I want to do? For one thing, I have to figure out which my army event card is. That's the Imrahil card, the Bilbo Song's character. Bilbo's Song kind of sucks for me because I have that Gandalf advantage. I could be recycling my character cards and using them quite quickly. I'm not going to have that. I'm going to expend a character and move. As far as I understand, that means the evil player gets to search for me. He needs 6s. He doesn't get any. And this sucker actually goes in here. That's now a +1 on other character cards. I don't have a lot else to do with my characters at this point, but I kind of don't want to risk those multiple moves. So we'll see. Alright, on to the evil player. Now, I still have less dice available as the evil player. I don't particularly want to take an action. I want to force the force the Fellowship to take another action. Alright, what about my muster action? I'm allowed to move the diplomacy forward. That's probably the best thing I can do with that or an army action. I could move some elves around. I think I'm going to increase the level at which the elves are engaged in this war. The elves don't have a huge army, but they're kind of separated from everything else, so I don't feel like they're terribly threatened. Getting their ability to move and act might be advantageous. Then again, boosting some of the others that have bigger armies might have been a wiser move. Now the Sauron player has to move. He has, I don't know, it looks like a shield and a banner. That's an army and a muster. Well, muster doesn't do me much, except for bringing a nation forward. Let us spend that, and I can't tell which is which, on being able to start mustering my Sauron player pieces. Puts us to the good player again. There's a lot of dice in there. I'm scared. What else can I do with a character? I can do a leader move or attack with army. I don't terribly want to do that. It's just there's so little that I actually wish to do. You know, I've got these far away elven forces that I could start moving. Let me check the restrictions on that. This huge board with little information on it takes up so damn much of the table. I gotta look at the diplomacy and try to figure that out, and you know, it's covered in both places, which is fine, but I can move outside national borders before I'm at war. Alright, and I am activated so I can move. I'm trying to figure out a character action that I can do other than moving the characters. I'm going to just move the Fellowship. I just don't feel like anything else is of much value to me. That means I'm going to be drawing a bunch of dice at 5 or 6 because of the +1 there. I get a hit. And a hit is almost guaranteed with that kind of die roll. Well, we get to see a lot of the mechanisms in play. I take a 1. A 1 seems pretty minor. I don't want to throw a character away with a 1, do I? I mean, a random character means I'd lose somebody good. So I'm going to take a point of corruption. And I've moved a second space. Notably, I didn't get any little markers to indicate that I'm found. And now this die goes in here. And I've moved 2 areas. I'm not sure in what direction. I don't really have to decide that yet. That puts me back on the evil player who has an army action. I don't see any reason. Oh, is this a musterable? Alright. Yeah, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't move here and gather those together. I can always muster an umber, even if I can't muster there. I'm not sure where I can muster. See, definition of things like settlement and stuff, you got to look those all up. I think that's not fortifications. If you're gonna, okay, yeah, strongholds are city, town, and stronghold. Okay, how do you tell the difference between those? So I don't know where the forts are. Fortifications are these. They have that same effect without the mustering. So towns can muster 2, which means I could build troops here, even though it's not worth victory points. Alright. So I moved. Now I have the option card for the good player. The Will of the West. And I can use this as any other die roll chosen by the free people's player. Well, what's the Isildur bonus? Did I screw up with this? Was I able to make him? No. So it's not just reforging the sword. Well, I think the best thing I could do is political things. I'm worried about Gondor with all this coming into play, so I gotta look for a tree. There's a tree. Gondor's pretty far along. Let's push Rohan up 1 instead. And that uses that action. And that is the sum of the turn. The only thing we do remaining is a victory check. Everybody gets their dice back, and we start another turn. What's the net effect? You know, something's hunted us, and we took a point of damage. That's not a terrible result either way. I mean, we've gotten 2 spaces away from where we are, which could be here, could be here. I can't make it to Moria yet, and I have to be careful because when I enter those, that triggers an issue. And this is what's neat. Everywhere, the way is blocked. Well, you could actually slip by through here, underneath Orthanc. and you could certainly come down in the south. But both the northern and central routes from most of the other games, they're more blocked here. Moria has always been a problem, and the northern passes were a problem, but most of the games allowed you to either go further north, further south, and take routes that are safer but out of your way. Although that northern route wasn't safe in, say, Fellowship of the Ring. It was pretty safe in the SPI War of the Ring. Alright, this is not a terribly long video, but it gives the first turn, gives some of the actions in play. I'm going to load it up as it is. Then I'm going to be stepping back from the game, not doing every action, focusing more on new types of stuff that are happening in the game as they happen. It plays a little bit more abstractly, and this was my feeling right from the beginning, than I kind of expect. It's got probably to do with the dice, which are kind of like a CDG, and this track where you're not even on the board with the Fellowship. That's probably the thing that most disappoints me in it, but we'll see as we go on.